6:14 local time, North Atlantic, along the outer edge of Greenland's ice pack. On the sonar display, 3 contacts appear almost together. No active signal, no identification. Just 3 submerged shapes entering the picture from separate bearings, each one holding its own exact depth range. One is deep. One sits in the middle layer. The last moves just beneath the cold surface band, where sound bends, fades, and vanishes. The sonar operator does not raise his voice. He does not need to. Multiple submerged contacts. Patterned movement. Inside the operations center, the room falls quiet. Not panic quiet. Professional quiet. The kind of silence that settles in when everyone understands what the picture might mean. The contacts are not drifting. They are moving with purpose. Slow speed, steady course. Converging lines. Carefully maintained separation. This is not ocean clutter. This is not fishing traffic. And it is not chance. Music. A second operator brings up the track history. The lines begin to tighten. The geometry is too clean. 3 submarines. Coordinated movement. The watch supervisor leans closer to the screen. He has seen this pattern before. Everyone in the room has. The spacing, the staggered depths, the way one contact holds back while the other 2 move forward, testing the edge of the situation. A classic challenge posture. No one says the country out loud. They do not have to. The acoustic profile is already telling its own story. Blade rhythm, cavitation trace, machinery harmonics buried just above the noise floor. Familiar signatures softened by distance but still unmistakable. Above them, on the bridge, the ship stays on course. No change in speed, no sudden turn, no visible reaction at all. Below decks, the decision is made. Readiness level 3, the officer of the watch says calmly. Set and man all key stations. Passive only, record everything, no siren sounds. No warning lights flash. This is not a confrontation yet. This is observation. The ocean here is deceptive. Cold layers stack like glass. Ice flows drift silently above, breaking sonar paths and twisting distance into something unreliable. Music. Under the ice edge, sound does not travel in straight lines. It bends, it hides, it misleads, and someone below is using that environment with great care. The forward contact drops a few meters, just enough to test the water column. Seconds later, the shallow contact mirrors the movement, offset by half a nautical mile. They are feeling for a response. None comes. The NATO escort holds steady, its sonar suite gathering every detail without giving anything away. Every second adds clarity. Every minute sharpens the picture. Then the third contact moves. The deepest one increases speed slightly, not toward the ship, but across its projected path. A lateral move, subtle, controlled, a message without words. We are here, we see you, and we are not alone. Inside the operations center, a liaison officer confirms the fused feed. A second Allied platform farther out is seeing the same pattern. Different angles, same conclusion. This is not one submarine acting alone. It is 3 vessels operating as a unit. The sonar waterfall fills with faint lines, each one tagged, time-stamped, and catalogued. No one reacts when the closest point of approach falls below 1 mile. It is bold, but still inside the margins of deniability. Close enough to be noticed, far enough to claim restraint. On the display, the tracks briefly align. For a moment, all 3 submarines move almost parallel, stacked vertically through the water column like a silent barrier. That is when the captain speaks over the internal net. Maintain course, maintain silence. No emotion, no hesitation. Above the surface, the sea looks calm. Broken ice catches the low light, drifting slowly across the gray water. From a distance, it would seem as if nothing is happening at all. But beneath that quiet surface, 3 Russian submarines have positioned themselves across one of NATO's most sensitive maritime corridors. And now, they are waiting to see what comes next. The ship gives them nothing. No course correction. No change in speed. No sudden increase in transmissions. From the outside, it could look like indifference. Inside the operations center, it is discipline. The 3 submerged contacts continue moving in, each one holding its assigned layer of the water column. The shallow contact rides along the thermocline, where sound scatters and distance becomes harder to judge. The middle contact remains steady, acting like the center point of the formation. The deepest contact stays wider, slow and patient, watching the pattern unfold. This is not a rush, it is a test. The sonar supervisor studies the tracks as they stretch and tighten, reading intent through geometry instead of noise. Every turn rate is measured, every tiny change in speed is recorded, every movement becomes part of the picture. Still, there is no active signal. The rule underwater is simple. The first one to speak gives something away. Above the operations center, the bridge remains steady. The officer of the deck keeps the ship locked on its planned route, hands calm at the console. the sea state has not changed. The ice edge still waits ahead, fractured and drifting, covering whatever moves beneath it. Then, below the surface, the contacts change their pattern. The shallow contact slides inward, tightening the gap. The closest point of approach drops again. Not close enough to force a response, not far enough to ignore. The middle contact slows by half a knot. Barely anything, just enough to shift the geometry. The deep contact holds outside the immediate envelope, like an observer watching the board. They are coordinating without making a sound. Inside the operations center, an Allied data link flickers into the picture. A maritime patrol aircraft is already on station hundreds of miles away, silent and unseen, feeding environmental data into the network. Sea temperature gradients, salinity, ice drift speed, layer behavior. Everything strengthens the picture. Nothing is handed back. The sonar operator adjusts the filters, removing ice noise and biological interference. What remains is clean. Too clean. One of the contacts briefly changes its revolutions. A tiny rise, just enough to be noticed. It is not about movement, it is confirmation. They want to know if they are being tracked. They are, but no one answers. The NATO escort remains a blank wall. No active signal, no maneuver, no visible response. Minutes pass. Then the formation shifts again. The deep contact moves closer to the track line, reducing its lateral separation. At the same time, the shallow contact drops a few meters, slipping below a stronger thermal boundary. That move sharpens its acoustic outline. A small mistake, but it is recorded. The watch officer leans closer. He says nothing. He does not need to. The data speaks clearly enough. This is no longer simple probing. It is shaping. The three submarines are trying to bracket the ship's projected path. One ahead, one alongside, one trailing wide. A classic containment pattern, adjusted for the conditions near the ice edge. Still no open escalation. Still nothing beyond movement and positioning. Still deniable. The operations center clock keeps moving forward. Every minute increases confidence. Every new bearing update tightens classification. The system flags consistency across all three contacts. Machinery harmonics align. Blade counts fall within expected ranges. Even through ice-distorted propagation, the signatures remain clear. These vessels did not simply cross paths by chance. They were sent together. Across the internal net, a short message is passed. Contacts classified. 3 units. Coordinated behavior confirmed. No adjectives, no commentary, just facts. The shallow contact edges closer again, now far inside the distance any civilian vessel would accept. The middle layer contact adjusts with it, turning slightly to preserve the shape of the formation. The deep contact drifts wider, guarding the flank. They are confident, maybe too confident, because the ocean does not belong to them alone. What the Russian boats cannot see is the other half of the board. A quiet layer of tracking sits beyond their immediate awareness. Passive sensors placed where sound folds back on itself. Platforms that do not need to move because their position is already enough. The Russians are focused on the ship. They have not realized who else is listening. Inside the NATO Operations Center, the captain's order remains unchanged. Maintain silence, maintain course. The escort continues forward, calm on the surface and unreadable beneath it. The shadow game continues, and the longer it lasts, the less it favors those trying to prove they are in control. The balance begins to shift without a single sound. Deep beneath the ice edge, a fourth presence changes depth. It does not rush. It does not surge forward. It simply slides into a layer of water, where sound behaves differently, where temperature and salinity bend acoustic paths like glass. From there, it does not need to move much at all. It only needs to listen. The 3 Russian submarines continue working their pattern, still focused on the NATO escort. Their formation tightens, relaxes, then tightens again. They believe they are shaping the encounter. They believe they are controlling the geometry. They are wrong. Inside the NATO Operations Center, a new track begins to form. Not as a contact at first, but as a solution. Bearings align across multiple sensors. Timestamps sync. What was once only an assessment begins to harden into certainty. The ocean gives up its secrets slowly, but it gives them up. The shallow Russian contact adjusts depth again, chasing a cleaner acoustic window near the underside of the ice. The move is precise, practiced, confident, and unnecessary. That small adjustment sharpens its signature just enough. The sonar operator marks it instantly. The data system compares it against the other 2 contacts. Blade rhythm, shaft harmonics, auxiliary noise, the tiny mechanical traces that training and discipline can reduce but never fully erase. 3 vessels. Same family, same doctrine. The picture locks. Still, NATO gives them nothing. No active signal, no maneuver, no visible acknowledgement. The escort holds course like a metronome, steady and predictable, offering no sign that anything has changed. On the surface, the ship passes between broken ice fragments, cutting through the water with quiet indifference. Below the surface, the real movement is happening somewhere else. The fourth presence stays silent and patient, using the ice itself as cover. Sound reflects. Echoes overlap. What reaches the Russian sensors is broken, misleading, and incomplete. They do not know they are being watched from an angle they never accounted for. Then, the deep Russian contact appears to sense that something is different. Its speed drops by a fraction of a knot. Not enough to look cautious, just enough to reassess. The middle layer contact responds, adjusting bearing to preserve spacing. The formation holds, but the rhythm is no longer perfect. Inside the operations center, no one celebrates. No one speaks. This is not a victory moment. Music. It is a collection moment. Every adjustment the Russian boats make adds more data. Every correction reveals a habit. Every attempt to restore the pattern leaves behind a signature. The fourth presence remains passive, allowing the Russians to do the work themselves. Minutes pass, then it happens. The shallow contact drifts upward again. Too far this time. For a brief moment, it crosses into a layer where background noise thins and self-noise becomes easier to separate. It is subtle, but it is there. The tracking solution sharpens instantly. A senior watch officer gives a single nod. That is enough. Not enough to respond. Not enough to reveal anything. Just enough to confirm. The Russians begin to feel it now. Not as detection, but as uncertainty. Their formation starts to lose its earlier confidence. Movements that were once crisp become slightly reactive. The deep contact widens its arc, pulling farther out than before. The middle layer contact slows again, trying to rebuild the formation around itself. They are no longer pressing. They are adjusting. From the NATO side, the order remains the same. Maintain silence. Maintain course. The escort continues forward as if unaware, as if indifferent. The Russians are still close enough to make their presence felt, but no longer close enough to control the space. And that difference matters, because beneath the ice, control is not about proximity. It is about who understands the environment better. The Russians came to challenge a ship. They did not realize they were entering a layered trap made from patience, physics, and restraint. The shadow game is no longer balanced, and the ones who arrived to test NATO resolve are beginning to understand that they may have stayed too long. The moment does not arrive with an alarm, it arrives with a deviation. On the sonar display, the middle layer Russian contact shifts course by a few degrees. Not enough to look dramatic, not enough to force a response, but enough to break the symmetry it had maintained since first contact. Music. Inside the operations center, several heads turn at the same time. That was not planned. The deep contact reacts a few seconds later, increasing lateral distance instead of tightening the formation. The shallow contact hesitates, holding depth longer than it should. For the first time since the encounter began, the three submarines are no longer moving as one. The silence stretches. No one on the NATO side moves to take advantage of it. No active signal, no maneuver, no audible acknowledgement. The escort continues forward, steady and unreadable, as if nothing has changed. But everything has. The fourth presence beneath the ice has not moved. It has not needed to. From its position, the Russian submarine's internal adjustments are obvious, almost loud in their restraint. This is what uncertainty looks like underwater. The Russian boats are not pulling away, not yet. But they are no longer pressing either. Their movements have shifted from deliberate challenge to cautious correction. Inside the operations center, the tracking picture is now complete. 3 contacts fully classified, positions refined, behavior mapped. The earlier ambiguity is gone. There is no longer any question who is here, how they are operating, or what pattern they are following. And that knowledge changes the balance more than any show of force ever could. The shallow contact makes another small adjustment, dropping back into a lower layer. This is a protective move, not a forward one. An attempt to reduce exposure without clearly signaling that it is pulling away. The middle layer contact slows again by the smallest margin. The deep contact keeps widening its arc, placing more water between itself and the escort's track. They are moving away from the center. On the bridge, the captain receives the update in short, precise language. Contacts classified. Formation coherence degraded. He does not answer immediately. He looks ahead through the reinforced glass as fragments of ice slide past the bow. The ship's wake remains steady behind them. Maintain course, he says at last. That is all. No escalation, no posture change, no announcement of success. Because the objective was never to force a response. It was to let the other side reveal itself. The Russians now understand that something fundamental has changed. They do not know exactly what. They do not know where the pressure is coming from, but they feel it. The confidence that shaped their first approach is gone. For the first time since the encounter began, the shallow contact increases distance. Not abruptly, smoothly, controlled. The kind of movement meant to look intentional, not forced. The middle layer contact follows, adjusting bearing to open more space. The deep contact holds its wider position, no longer acting as the anchor of the formation. The line they drew across the corridor is dissolving. Inside the operations center, no one speaks. The data keeps flowing. Every movement is logged. Every correction is timestamped. This is quiet superiority. No visible action, no transmission, nothing revealed, and yet the result is clear. The Russian submarines did not gain control of the encounter. They did not force NATO to react. They did not shape the engagement on their terms. Instead, they exposed themselves. The escort passes through the space where the invisible line once existed. Above the surface, nothing marks the moment. Below it, the encounter has already ended. The Russians continue to pull back, not in disorder, not in panic. They reposition carefully, professionally, and with just enough restraint to preserve deniability. Music, but they leave behind something far more valuable than proximity. They leave behind data. The fourth presence remains silent and still, letting the gap widen on its own. There is no chase, no added pressure. The lesson has already been delivered. Under the Greenland ice, the board has been reset, and the side that arrived to challenge has quietly accepted that the moment has passed. The ocean settles first. On the surface, nothing has changed. The same broken ice, the same low light, the same steady wake trailing behind the NATO escort as it continues along its planned route. Below the surface, the picture begins to thin. One by one, the Russian contacts fade outward, not vanishing suddenly, but stretching away into wider water. Their bearings drift apart. Their depths diverge. The tight coordination that defined the opening moments of the encounter dissolves into separation. This is not a rout. It is a careful withdrawal. The shallow contact is the first to pull back decisively, sliding deeper and opening distance until its acoustic presence softens into the background. The middle layer contact follows, adjusting course onto a parallel track well outside close approach parameters. The deep contact lingers the longest, holding position just far enough to observe, before easing away in a wide arc that leaves no doubt. The challenge is over. Inside the operations center, the status board updates in calm, methodical steps. Tracks are reclassified from active encounter to monitored departure. Timers continue to run. Logs remain open. There is no celebration. There never is. The captain receives the final assessment without ceremony. Contacts withdrawing, no further assertive maneuvering. He acknowledges it with a single nod, nothing more. Because from NATO's perspective, this was never about winning a visible confrontation. It was about control. Control of information, control of tempo, control of escalation, and that control was never lost. Every second of the encounter has already been captured. Acoustic signatures preserved, behavioral patterns mapped, depth preferences recorded, formation logic analyzed. Not only what the submarines were, but how they operated. That data now moves quietly through the network, feeding training models, refining future detection systems, and informing crews who may never know this encounter happened, but will benefit from it all the same. Above the surface, the escort continues its transit exactly as scheduled. No posture change, no announcement, no public statement. To the outside world, it was an uneventful passage through cold northern waters. To those who were there, it was a reminder of how modern maritime competition truly unfolds. No dramatic exchange, no active sonar call, no radio challenge. Just patience, discipline, and physics. The Russian submarines fade beyond effective tracking range, leaving behind only residual noise and a complete record of their approach and departure. Whatever message they intended to send has been answered. Not with force, but with silence that spoke louder than any visible response. This is the reality beneath the ice. Encounters happen without headlines. Challenges are issued without words. Outcomes are decided without witnesses. What matters is not who moved closer. What matters is who understood the environment better, who stayed quiet longer, who allowed the other side to reveal more than it intended. On this day near Greenland, nothing erupted, nothing was broadcast, and nothing demanded explanation. That was the point. The NATO escort moves on, almost indistinguishable from the ice and sea around it. And somewhere far below, 3 submarines carry away the knowledge that they were seen, studied, and quietly outmatched.